If you go in the direction right into the picture, you arrive at Åland Island after 340 nautical miles. So this picture is taken up north outside Umeå, where our university is situated. I'm going to talk about the best practice case we have chosen. I think you can point to this one. The Swedish National School Leadership Training Program. The content will be background rationale for the choice of this case, the mission and role of the Swedish National Agency, the aim of the training program, the goals of the training program, and the relation to the EPNoSL tool concept. So I've tried to make an analysis of that. And the experiences so far collected by the Swedish National Agency. The background is that the training program principles have been introduced since '67 in Sweden. It has been changed a lot of times, and these changes have moved the program towards a stronger focus on equity learning, accountability, pedagogical leadership, distributed leadership, and policy response. You can see that from this, well, it's a large table, but here we have the years with the responsible one. National agency goes through most of it. This is a special authority that started but ended in a few years. The national agency is the head of the principal training program, and municipalities is sometimes here 86 connected to the national agency in developing the way the principal training should look. And they implemented from the start was a national agency, but from '93 and further on is the universities that launches the education. It wasn't mandatory until 2009, and from now on it's going to be mandatory for all newly appointed principals. The length has been 3 years almost all the time. Credits, no credits at the university level, but we can count in from those who went to the training program 2000 forward to 2009, and then it's a level at the advanced level. And here is the EPNoSL concepts that I've chosen to test, and we can see that the crosses marks whether the program entails stuff like this, and that it is strengthened throughout the year. So we're going forward to the EPNoSL way of thinking about school leadership. The rationale for choosing this case is based, of course, on what we see in this back table. It's governed and financed by the Swedish National Agency of Education, but the school boards and all municipalities are expected to apply to the program for their principals and support them during it. So it's a cooperation between those two levels. It was decided to be mandatory, and it's designed for the advanced level, the master level formulated in the Bologna process. It links to master programs at universities. They cooperate between universities to make it possible for the principals to go from the principal training program to the master program. The course structure goes for the Bologna practice of expected study results, knowledge and understanding, skills and abilities, assessment, ability and approaches. This is a translation that is made in Sweden. Perhaps you use other words for these three types of expected results. The course is focused steering system, school as an organization, and school leadership. And the universities that are chosen to deliver the education, the training, is done quite thoroughly. But I have to read them because it's difficult if I stand here and read. I don't have a name. The goal of the agency, drawing up clear goals and knowledge requirements, providing support for the development of preschools and schools, developing and disseminating new knowledge, benefit to our target groups, and communicate to improve. I suppose that your agencies have much of the same goals. It supervises, supports, follows, and evaluates the schools in order to improve quality and outcomes. All pupils have the right and equivalent education. This is taken from their information about themselves. And it's, we think that part of the national agency that is responsible for the principal training program, they do their work very well. We go over that one. The aim is, the task for principals, this is also text from the national agency, is to create a school and preschool of high quality for everyone, where the national goals are achieved and learning experience is meaningful, stimulating, and secure. The National School Leadership Training Program aims at providing principals with the knowledge and skills required to be able to manage their responsibilities and achieve the goals set up. So there are 3 areas of knowledge with 10 credits each. Legislation on schools and the role of exercising the functions of an authority, and the Education Act or the school law, if you want, is the basis here. Management by goals and objectives, and this is the result steering process in Swedish schools that are gone through in this part of the program. And the last one is school leadership. And the examination varies between universities. In Umeå, the first course is examined with a written test, and many principals think that this is scary, because they seldom have had a written test as we used to have in the universities. The second and third were reports on quality assurance, school and leadership development. That's the building of the education. But now we go to the concepts we use and talk about: equity, learning, accountability, pedagogical leadership, distributed leadership, policy response. And I gave them the first capital in each, or 2 if needed. And I go through all the 39 goals. There are a lot of goals in this program. 39 goals, and we can pick a couple of examples here. This is accountability and policy response. And the goal is demonstrate good knowledge of the structure of the steering system and the principles tasked in accordance with legislation. Second one is a lot of stuff related to demonstrate knowledge of the central elements of school legislation covering the individual's right to education and responsibility for the provision of such education. And all these I mark E, that's equity. And if we take management by goals and objectives, we have accountability and policy response. Demonstrate good knowledge of the principles of the central regulatory system and their interaction, as well as the conditions governing work in a political sphere organization. I don't know if Carl would call this, where are you, Carl? Are you awake? Would you call this?
I'm wide awake.
Policy response. I thought it was about policy response because it's, when we train principals, we have to learn how they read the policy documents, how they understand them, how they implement them when they work in their schools. And this is about the same. We go on to school leadership, and there we have pedagogical leadership. Could be demonstrate good knowledge of the effects of different leadership strategies on the performance of co-workers in order to enhance the development at individual and group levels. This could be done with pedagogical leadership. And here we have one with 3 angles: leadership, learning, distributed leadership, and accountability. Demonstrate good ability as the head and leader of school personnel in managing and delegating work in order to maximize the learning and development of pupils. So, if we count all these capitals for the different concepts, we find that equity has 12, accountability 17, learning 10, distributed leadership 10, but pedagogical leadership only 9, and sorry, policy response we find in only 6 of those. Well, this is a tentative way of trying to understand what do we do, what are our goals in the principal training program related to what we think here in EPNoSL. So interesting is that equity and accountability wins this race, and I think this is related to the discussion in Sweden because we have a separation of schools in Sweden, and some pupils have a tough world, both now in school and in their future. And pupils going to other schools, they have quite easier journey. So we have to discuss the equity of the system, and the goals are clear here. Accountability has also been discussed, of course, in relation to the PISA results that are being dropped for 10 years now. So there's a lot of discussion about accountability. That one. So we go back to the big table, and we look into the concepts here.
Jonas, I'm sorry, can you please round up, because we still have...
Yeah, I'm rounding up. We put them here. We can perhaps say that equity and accountability, and perhaps also distributed leadership, has grown more in the goals than what we perhaps perceive. Just a few words about the results of the program so far. Last year, 2,100 school leaders have completed the program, and of these, 90% passed the graduation exams. 3,400 principals are now in training. This means that approximately 60% of Swedish principals and assistant principals either completed or are following the program. The number of school leaders who started this year is 1,000. And the participants' perception of the program is positive, and the estimates increase during the program. This is interesting for the networking issue. This is probably an effect of the university's ambition to meet the participants based on the group's composition and their heterogeneity of participants' individual needs. Over 95% of those who finish the education consider the program to be fine or very good. Is this a best practice? Well, here are all the things that are specified for the program, and the course providers probably chosen. So focus on organizational theory, research, policy documents, and practice is something that we see in the program. And that's because we use the flower of learning. It's about theory, research, policy document, and practice. That will be school leadership. So, thank you.